Susan, and we will get started. So welcome. Good afternoon, Shorters and Jennifer. So it is so good to see all of you, and thank you for being here. Thank you to Jennifer for hosting, and we have some folks over Zoom, so welcome to our folks over Zoom. My name is Susan McClarty, and I'm going to talk for just a minute about the report that we're excited to release as an update to 2019. And each of you should have something in your chair. If you don't, make sure, try to grab one. We're going to talk about this here at the beginning, because there's something very important for all of us to do today, for you, for me, and today and in the days ahead. So I do want to invite you, if you're able, some of you know that we're taking the report to all of our county council members. Councilmember Ballard endorsed this idea that we're going to use the open comment session at 4:30 today at County Square. So please join us there if you are able. And this report, this information that comes from many of you in this room, as well as from national sites, we've stitched it together in a way that we hope is very digestible and is really unique to the Greenville Homeless Alliance. We want you to share this information. That's the other important thing that you do today and in the days ahead. When you share it, you're going to help us grow the understanding of who is experiencing homelessness and what those community solutions are that are required. The 2021 report and summary handout are also linked now on our website, so you can pull that up under the page titled Resources, followed by Research. You're going to hear soon from some of the experts in the room, each from their respective areas, but we're going to begin by just covering some very intentional language that we want you to, again, leave with today, and hopefully all of us are on the same page. We're going to get more people on the same page. So join me in looking at this bottom part of your handout. It's titled Options for Maintaining Housing Affordability. This is so important, as also today we are celebrating the 54th anniversary of the Fair Housing Act for our country. So look across this continuum at the very top line, find yourself. This is household income running across the top. Find where you and your household are. And then look at this first colored green block, the light green block on your left. This is our main focus as the Greenville Homeless Alliance. But guess what? Housing affordability, when we hear that term, affordable housing, actually extends in these first three blocks, all the way up to an income of $108,000 annually. This is why our efforts matter more than ever. This is why our frontline service providers and people experiencing homelessness feel this crisis every day. And guess what else? Many of the people that walk here into Tryon and other frontline service providers, their income is less than half of the highest part of this light green block. So when we say all, we mean all. We honor the value of every human being. And that's why all of us are needed in the solutions. So here's the number I want you to remember. If you don't already know this, 30% refers to two things we're going to talk about. So 30% means that to speak to our value of equity, all of us should be paying about 30% of our income or less for our housing. When you see that number across the top, they're talking about a household size of 4. So if you go into our report, you'll see it broken down as HUD defines it by household size, starting with a household of 1 all the way up to a household of 8. And that's on page 14. The key word that we want you to notice in this light green section is actually different than if you look at our 2019 report. So the key word That's okay. That's Lillian. It probably rings all day long. But that key word we want you to leave with today is stabilized. Stabilized, okay? So the rent or mortgage requires housing stabilization funds. And we urge you to use that phrase, housing stabilization funds. The partners also in the Greenville Affordable Housing Coalition that's covering the 3 blocks, not just the light green, are also using this phrase. And this represents a way that we collectively here and joining with other coalitions can shift this narrative and shift then the problem that's holding homelessness in place. We've already talked about why this is important because of our value of equity. So for a household to pay 30% or less of their income, that means me and you as the community must ensure that every month something is filling that gap between their household income and fair market rent. So on your handout here, you'll see we lead the state, y'all. This is not an area we want to lead the state in, but we have 32,000 households in Greenville that are paying more than 30% of their income for housing. So we need more solutions as we see our family median income continuing to rise. So Gale PA just yesterday shared that that number for 2022 came out and Greenville has jumped again. The new number is 85,200 for a family of 4. And we are predicted, you all, to continue to rise every year for the foreseeable future by an estimated 10 to 15% in that number. So Yvonne Reeder is with us today. She has encouraged the Educate Working Group to focus on the word share instead of give. Because guess what? Also listed on this section of your page, majority of the households in Greenville County actually pay far less than 30% to find an affordable home. And they also find a lot of house for the money. So let's share so that everyone can say, yes, I live in safe and affordable housing. Now I want to call your attention to this dark green block and just point out this is where luxury, anything considered luxury, begins. And that's at a family median income of $154,000. And many of you know the average listing price for homes in Greenville is over $300,000. So where the majority of rental and homeownership is being built is in this dark green. And that is pulling up this family median income and also putting what we call this downward pressure on everything below that. So it's really important that we continue to create options that are referred to also as income restricted, because the open market doesn't pick up until those last 2 blocks. All right, so now we're just going to talk briefly about the backside of your handout. So we want you to know that our priorities have not changed since the 2019 report. Our number 1 priority continues to be housing and exits from homelessness. So we're going to spend a minute on an intentional language here. If you saw our 2019 report, we do talk about housing first in that. We want you to leave here understanding today that the term everyone on our steering committee could get behind has actually shifted. It's called permanent supportive housing. And we want you to know that that's a solution that works. We have Lorraine Crowell here with United Housing Connections who operates Reedy Place. And you can read about that as a very successful way that our community saves scarce public resources. And permanent supportive housing is for single adults who are chronically homeless and they are diagnosed with a disability. And Mary Kay is going to talk a little bit more about that in her section. But it is a low barrier approach where a critical component is that it does not require a person to be sober or receiving mental health services to have a place of their own to call home. So we want to be transparent with you and help you understand the term housing first for some of our partners has become very politicized. So what we can all agree on is permanent supportive housing works, and we want more places like Reedy Place. So we hope you'll leave with that understanding and read more about that in our report. So as we reach for this vision of safe, affordable homes, we know that there's this significant deficit, it's growing, but we also know that solutions are coming. We'll talk about some of those today. You can see how we talk about what is the housing ladder we need in order to help more people exit homelessness on page 18 of our report. So I want to spend the last minute or two just talking about race and homelessness. That's also on your back side of your sheet. We just can't leave here today without looking at this data and acknowledging that Blacks are simply not being included. The number of Blacks living within 1 mile of Unity Park has seen a 47% decrease between 1990 and 2020. And this is noted by Professor Ken Cobb from Furman. Affordability for our household median income of Black residents, as calculated by the American Community Survey 2020 5-year estimate, is $27,892. This means that the median Black household in Greenville can afford to pay a third of their income on housing. So we talked about that. That would be $762 a month. To put that in perspective, that means that 50% of our FMI for all residents is still 127% FMI for Black residents. Affordable housing and racial displacement are so important. And unless we develop new policies based on more precise measurements, providing the first will not prevent the second. So our data tells us that Blacks are more likely to experience homelessness here in Greenville County, both in the sheltered and unsheltered counts. But as we say in our values, we know our strength is in our diversity. So our jobs, our ability to share this information, it truly matters more than ever. The jobs, speaking of jobs on your handout, do show essential workers that are priced out of living in Greenville County without having income restricted housing options. And as we continue to advance projects and open them like Unity Park and just grow our awareness across the world that we are this tourist destination, we have to keep pressing forward urgently together to increase the options near Greenlink routes. So as I close, I just want to offer my sincere thanks. Many of you in this room are frontline service providers and also to our elected officials. You've been working through a difficult time and you have served for our frontline service providers, thousands of people during this pandemic. And we're going to hear about some of those options that opened during this time as well, that if you're in our report, you can see on page 41. Thank you again. I'm going to close and we're going to bring up our first Mythbuster, which is part of an Educate Working Group campaign, which will be followed by Lauren.
You can't judge a book by looking at its cover, and you can't judge a person if they're homeless or not by looking at their outer appearance. I learned that from working with the Greenville Homeless Alliance in the education community. The coworker that comes to work every day, dedicated, work really, really hard, you have no idea that they go home to a shelter. There's the man that you see in the really nice car, well-dressed, and not realize that his car is his bedroom. And then you have the children at school who are just overly happy to arrive at school, constantly love to come to your house with their kids to hang out, not knowing that they don't have a home to go to. These are homeless faces that you will not recognize on a day-to-day basis. But these are faces that you can assist and help them have their own front door by becoming a part of the Greenville Homeless Alliance, membership, through donation, or giving up your time. This can make a difference. Share your differences.
shut it down because I'm quite loud naturally. I don't quite need a microphone. Hi, good afternoon. My name is Lauren Stevens, and I'm the Director of Social Services for the Salvation Army here in Greenville County. And I also serve as the chair of the Greenville Homeless Alliance, and also a proud member of the upstate chapter of the Continuum of Care. So there's my business card. It looks like a poster board mostly, but I'm here today to talk to you about sort of my bread and butter, which is sheltered homelessness and the folks that we serve in that capacity. Of course, the Salvation Army is not unique in serving individuals experiencing homelessness in a residential capacity. We have excellent partners that make up over 450 emergency shelter beds here in Greenville. Of those beds, you have your undesignated bed count. So that would be just your general shelter providers, which Miracle Hill Ministries, as well as Salvation Army, we make up the majority of that bubble. And then you have your more specialized shelter beds. So you have things, beds for survivors of domestic violence and their children at Safe Harbor. You also have transitional type places for single women, as well as Pendleton Place, which is our newest addition here, as far as having it for youth. And so we have a lot of pockets where folks can have that more specialized shelter experience that'll fit their needs a little bit better. And then you kind of have your general shelter providers such as Miracle Hill and ourselves. Of the larger number of folks experiencing homelessness, and I'm looking for the number, I know it's over 3,000, but I know that over 1,900 of those folks utilized an emergency shelter service in the time frame that this data was recorded. And a huge thank you to the Upstate Continuum of Care for the data that we do use throughout this report. I will say that the success of shelter is really hard to measure. And success is actually, when it comes to the outputs that our folks are able to get to, I don't quite like to use it. I find it to be pretty, assign something to someone that this will mean you're successful. When really coming inside is a huge step towards success. When you're on a frontline capacity, choosing sobriety, even if it's for a week, was a really big step towards success. And so we allow folks, and I know both Miracle Hill and the Salvation Army, we both really allow folks to navigate their own success story. And that, showing up on time for appointments, we celebrate that success because that is a huge accomplishment for some of our folks. But we, over the 450 shelter beds that we have here in Greenville, they're full. Every single night, they're full. And if they become empty, they're full that next night. And so when you think about that, you're having a turnover rate of a lot of folks who are going in and out of a system. And so why aren't we ending homelessness? If we have all of these beds, if we have all of these resources, well, it's because where do you exit to? I think one of the most important goals of the Greenville Homeless Alliance is to identify that one of the largest pieces that pushes us forward is the desire to create exits from homelessness, exits from shelter. Our inflow needs to match our outflow. If you just throw that nice little easy graph in your head. And so when someone comes into shelter, they're making a choice to come inside first. And then we work with them as far as working through the barriers that often presented as the cause of their homelessness and now are presenting as the reason they can't exit. Things such as evictions, poor credit, no transportation, underemployment, unemployment, mental health, addiction. The list, I could talk to you all for 2 days about the reasons why people are becoming homeless and then also why are they staying this way. And so, we are proud of the services that we provide here in Greenville County. We try our very best to meet the needs as they present themselves. We have an incredible group of service providers that offer their services with care and compassion. And we have outcomes that we think are pretty good. And then we also have a really big problem with people, with the number of folks experiencing homelessness. And so we really want to just keep the conversation going. And that's why this report is really important. So I encourage you all to read into the stories that are highlighted throughout the report. Look at the data, because data makes you understand. What we've done is we've attached a story because stories make people care. And so we want to connect those two places. And so, I think that every shelter provider, every service provider would be happy to answer any questions that you do have. So as you see us around at meetings, at this meeting, please feel free to stop us and ask us questions as information in the report piques an interest of yours. or if you feel like you have a certain gift or talent that you could pour into a certain aspect that you see in the report, please reach out to us. We are always open to including more people in this very long uphill battle that is homelessness. Thank you.
Pastor, may I turn that up? That's what the video is, not mine. I'm here to talk about the unsheltered. My name is Mary K. Campbell. I am with Greater Greenville Mental Health Center. I'm a clinical social worker, and I oversee the program for folks that are homeless and dealing with a serious mental illness. I am vice chair of GHA, and I am a member of the upstate COC, so it's an honor to be here. The unsheltered, if you'll see, the number, the report shows that 214 folks were living unsheltered. These are men, women, and children. Hear me when I say unsheltered. This means living outside in a place not meant for human habitation, be it a tent, sleeping in the woods, under a bridge, in an abandoned building. So, and the chronically homeless the chronically homeless with a disability is what we call a subgroup or a subpopulation of the larger homeless population. Again, from the report, it identified 181 individuals considered experiencing chronically homelessness and dealing with some disability, mental illness, developmental, medical. And out of the 181 individuals, 87 were considered unsheltered, meaning, again, in a place not meant for human habitation. I want to thank Susan and Heather for, they're going to show it in a minute, but blowing this up for me. I'll call her Marie. Marie was one of the 87 living outside. Marie is referred to, you will hear, the invisible or the unseen. If y'all haven't looked at the blog that Tish did recently, wrote and is in the Greenville Homeless Alliance on the website, I would encourage you to. I want to mention a couple of things. Because of you, y'all, because of Greenville Homeless Alliance, homelessness in our community is no longer invisible. In quotes, people experiencing homelessness are less likely to be just islands for others to move past or not even seen. Happy birthday, 4 years and moving into 5 years. You see how far So, best we know about Marie is that she probably had been outside, best we know, 12 years or longer. She was unable to tolerate the shelter setting because of the mental illness, too much stimulation. I'm sorry.
Oh, there you go.
And she was known to travel, if you will, by herself and move around on her own, which for living outside placed her at a higher risk of being attacked or traumatized on the street. I'm told the efforts through the years to help Marie were met by resistance and lack of follow-through, which both terms are considered unhealthy, unhelpful jargon that is counterproductive in working effectively with this population. So it was that Marie surfaced in the downtown area and in 2020, and I got a call, which gave us, the homeless providers, an opportunity to reconnect with her, focus on building a relationship with her goal, moving out of homelessness into her own place. Marie more than once realized that she was tired of weathering the elements outside, tired of worrying about where to sleep, where to get something to eat, tired of feeling fearful of others, and so it goes. I remember one of the last times sitting with her on a bench downtown, and we were drinking a cup of coffee, just a way to connect. Her shoulders were slumped, and she was looking down, and she spoke the words again, "Mary, I'm tired." I said, "Marie, what is it you want?" And she remarked something to the effect of an apartment. Something, folks. So for the next months, her journey was about the homeless providers coming together, getting her things like an ID, a social security card, a birth certificate, those things needed for housing. Continuing to work on building trust with her. The coffee club agreed to, and this had been processing for weeks. The coffee club agreed to use funds to put her up in a motel during the interim while working on securing her a place to live. Sure, here, I stood to watch, I observed her for about 5 minutes. There were two separate times, two people that walked by and said nothing to her. Someone placed something here, and I think it was two, but it was here that I finally noted to her, and I said, "Marie," and she looked up, and I said, "Let's get out of the cold." So we hopped in the car and there we took her to a motel, and that's where she stayed while we continued to work on securing her a place to live. This is a story. This is a face. A face of one of the 87 identified in the 2020 report as someone experiencing chronic homelessness and dealing with schizophrenia and obsessive compulsive disorder. Marie is no longer homeless. She transitioned from a motel into her own apartment with rental subsidy. She was receiving supportive services from an agency and was recently awarded Social Security income.
Good evening, good afternoon. My name is Irene Hamilton Jones. I am the homeless liaison education. contact person for River County School District, as well as a foster care contact person for the district. I'm here to talk about the babies. Of course, you can't have one without the other. And you already know we have homeless adult, we have homeless adult men, we have homeless adult women. But our babies are dear to my heart, and those are the ones that I focus on. But I'm going to take the time right quick just to share two stories that I'm hoping by the end of this, the two stories that you get or the thing that you get from this is partnership. One, I thrive on it, I need it, and I depend on it. It's because of people like you that these families are successful or becoming successful, and hopefully will show the importance of having a partnership. And then the other thing, more than anything else, is that it's because of you all and them that these children are able to take that next step. And because of you all, they were able to maintain educational stability. So one of the things that I'm talking about, the first one is Grayson. I call him the Grayson because Grayson is a cute little boy that's dear to my heart. He and his mom had been homeless, and she initially brought to my attention because an employee at the school district saw that something was going on. And when the social worker began to talk with this parent, the parent was extremely defensive. And she shared that she didn't need anything and that her needs had been met. Unfortunately, through the conversation, we realized that that was not the truth at all. And in fact, it was through this conversation that we realized mom herself had been in the system. She herself had experienced foster care and did not like the experience. And she was fearful that if she was to share anything about her family, the unique situation and the things that she was going through, that her children would be removed or taken from her. So the social worker took the time, got on her level to explain to her, your situation has nothing to do with whether or not your children will be removed from you. That took 2 weeks in and of itself just to break that barrier. But by the time we got through that, she began to relax and she began to trust us. And it's through that that we began to help her meet her needs. Both of her kids, she has 2 children that are on the autism spectrum. We help her to meet that need to make sure that the little boy can get in school and that the little girl is able to receive services from baby. We also provided busing services and things of that nature. We found out that dad is working and dad is gainfully employed, making somewhere between $250 and $800 a week. Why does the salary fluctuate? It's because he's employed for a moving company. And it varies depending on how many families they're going to have to help move from time to time. The social worker began to work with this family, continue working with this family, also providing a referral to UHC, which UHC is continuously working with them to help provide them support. I'm going to come back to that family in just a second, but then I have another family. This one is Malachi. Malachi is in a high school, and this one came, interestingly enough, the grandmother called on behalf of her grandson and her son. Her grandson, her son had lost everything, but he was gainfully employed, had nowhere to go. They spent a night in their car. The grandmother was not going to allow her children to remain sleeping in the car, so she allowed them to come live with her. She knew the rules, and apparently she has a voucher, I believe, and she knows that they can only stay 14 days. So she went above and beyond and called the school, and she says, if there's anything you can do to help my grandson, I would greatly appreciate it. They referred her to me, and once again, I put her in touch with my counterparts. We hired a social worker who is beginning to offer services to this family. Like I said, he was working. He had a job, but things fell on bad times, and one issue after another led to him being homeless. The social worker was able to find help the student with getting bus and getting back and forth to school. We just wanted to make sure that he wasn't missing any more days. He had missed maybe 3 or 4 days, and that was not acceptable. So we worked really hard in trying to do that. We, of course, help with the basic necessity of clothes and things of that nature. But I am very happy to report on this one, UHC was able to provide a home for this person. Last week, they were able to find housing. So I thrive on those partnerships. It makes me feel good because I get so many bad stories, so many things that I have to help people. My hands are tied and I can't help them. going off sometimes. So many times I have my hands are tied in things that I can't do, but because of you guys giving your time, your money, your effort, helping get families off of the streets, it leaves us, it leaves me with the ability to help the babies, the kids, so that they can maintain enrollment in school. We need to keep them in school. We need to make sure that their education is not being interrupted. Those 2 families I just shared with you, we accomplished that, but that's just 2 of many. To date, we have over 1,000 students that's already been identified this year alone. We can't do it without you guys, so please continue.
Hi, I'm Sherry Schmidt with Training Mercy Center, and the myth I'm going to bust is all you need to end homelessness is a home. Our staff at Training Mercy Center, which includes case managers and social workers, help people experiencing homelessness obtain housing. Once that happens, their job becomes helping that person keep housing, which can be just as challenging as finding housing that's affordable to that person's income in the first place. Many of our folks have spent years on the street or in shelters, and even though finding a home is their dream, it's scary when it happens because their whole routine is going to change. They now have an overwhelming number of new things to learn, like where and how do I set up utilities? Where and how do I furnish my new home? What are the rules that I signed in this lease? How do I sleep in a bed, in a bedroom without a bunch of other people around? Where and how is mail delivered? How the appliances work? How do I adapt to cooking for myself? How do I get used to quiet and being by myself? And how do I establish a budget? Many of our clients live on fixed income, Social Security, or Social Security income with disability, which means their income can range from $700 to $1,100 per month. Case managers and social workers support their clients through all of these physical and emotional transitions. One of our social workers, Robin, came up with a creative way of supporting people in this situation by starting a monthly Welcome Home Club at Training. This club provides social and learning opportunities for our clients who have moved into their own home. So yeah, home is where ending homelessness starts, but supporting healthy relationships keep it going.
This is the first of our 2 Mythbusters, and so if you'll make sure, give us some feedback on these by filling out this card before you leave today, and you can leave it on the check-in table.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Brandon Cook, and Susan, I'm going to do my best to stay on time for you. I'm with New Horizon Family Health Services, and I'm the director of the Healthcare for the Homeless and Medical Respite Programs at New Horizon. I'm also coming to you today as the secretary of the Greenville Homeless Alliance. Real quick, Healthcare for the Homeless ensures access to primary healthcare services for people experiencing homelessness in Greenville County, as well as other counties across the upstate. And the Medical Respite Program provides access to safe space for recuperative care for people experiencing homelessness being discharged from the hospital with an acute illness or injury. Both programs work because of collaborative partnerships in our community that keep the person at the center. We've already heard some data. We've already heard some very good stories about individuals. So now I'm going to share some examples of community solutions from page 41 in the 2021 report. But before I begin, let me just say all of us are gathered here today, believe that community solutions matter, obviously. And as Susan mentioned earlier, without joining together and each bring our strengths to the table, the pull of the open market will always win. And by being here, you send a signal that we are stronger together and we stand with one another to ensure that everyone in our community is included, because we believe that everyone matters. And with that, this first slide you'll see highlight a couple of things that has happened since 2019. First up is the medical respite program opened in January of 2019 in partnership with Miracle Hill. New Horizon launched the first in the state medical respite program for people experiencing homelessness. We started with 6 beds in Miracle Hill's emergency shelter for men at their Green Rescue mission. And you can read about John, one of the first men served when the program launched, on page 25 of the 2021 report. John was in real need of medical respite. It's a very long story, so I'll keep that short. But essentially, he recovered enough to be discharged from the hospital, but not enough to continue his healing on the street or in a traditional shelter. With the help of the respite team and the Miracle Hill team, John was able to recover in a safe and clean environment while accessing the support he needed to more fully recover. This program saves our hospitals and community real dollars by reducing the medical cost per day dramatically, sometimes as much as $200 per day compared to $2,000 a day. And equally important, the program allows participants the ability to access healthcare and stay engaged with healthcare while improving their overall health outcome. And I'm happy to say in February of this year, in continued collaboration between New Horizon and Miracle Hill, we were able to launch 4 additional beds to serve women through Miracle Hill's emergency shelter for women at Shepherd's Gate. Also the highlight, and Lauren mentioned this kind of earlier, but very excited about Pendleton Place. They were able to open their emergency shelter beds for youth, especially during COVID-19. So in 2021, they started offering beds in their adult hall for folks ages 18 to 21, and beds in their minor hall for folks who were 12 to 17. These beds complement their work as the only youth resource center in the upstate, which offers support services and short-term housing resources as a vital connection between foster care and youth experiencing homelessness. Next slide. So here we're going to look at some transitional or interim housing options for women. Again, Miracle Hill, great partner not only for New Horizon, but also for the community. Miracle Hill Shepherd's Gate opened their first transitional home for women as a bridge to exit emergency shelter. And that's something else that Lauren touched on earlier, those exits out of shelter. The increasing cost of permanent housing in Greenville County means that women need time to search for a home. They need time to save for a home or obtain reliable transportation. They also need time to continue to improve their employment status or develop work skills or pursue education. But it's safe to say moving forward out of homelessness takes time, determination, and support. Also happy to talk about Soteria, which opened a program for women being released from incarceration to complement the program that they already have established for men. With this program, they can serve up to 16 women at a time. And it's also important to note that graduates of the Soteria program have a recidivism rate of 4%. And for the last 23 years, Soteria has helped over 5,000 men successfully transition out of the prison system to being successful citizens and preparing them to be productive in society. So it's very exciting that they're going to be able to serve women in the same capacity. Also to note, and I promise I'm getting to the end of my notes, Jasmine Road opened a second home for women who have experienced human trafficking, prostitution, and addiction. This triples their capacity, so very excited for that. Jasmine Road's program has 3 phases, and the graduation success rate for those who stayed through phase 1 is 70%, and 100% for those who stayed through phase 2. So programs like this serve not only the survivors, but the community at large. And Jasmine Road would ask that you consider the scarce community resources used by just one woman who was arrested 22 times in less than 3 years. That's a lot of resources for one individual. Next slide. So permanent housing options. So there are new permanent housing rental and home ownership options thanks to GHA partners like you all, like some of you all in this room, including Habitat for Humanity, Homes of Hope, the Housing Authority, and HE. GHA also invites everyone to celebrate United Housing Connections as they expect to begin construction of 36 additional permanent supportive homes at Church Street Place. Very excited for that news. And you can see on page 24 of the report, the cost savings to the community from a study that was led by GHA that demonstrates a 92% reduction in the charges to our hospitals as well as our detention center. Permanent supportive housing is an evidence-based solution. I think that's very important to remember. Greenville is fortunate to also have mental health counselors like Mary Kay Campbell, who we heard from earlier, and her team from Greater Greenville Mental Health, who provide outstanding mental health services as a vital part of this particular housing solution. And then slide 5. So, very excited for this. Many of you in this room helped change the entire transit system because of your advocacy, and we are happy to celebrate increased hours for Greenland. Very excited. So with that, the bus now runs until 11:30 p.m., 6 days a week. But our advocacy is not over, and GHA still needs your help through 2023 as the transit coalition that GHA is a part of, called Greenville Connects, completes all of its goals in the transit development plan. As advocates, you are ensuring Sunday service, more routes, better schedules, and 30-minute bus frequency, which is critical as Greenville County welcomes over 200,000 more residents by 2040. So with that, that's a lot of good news that has happened since the last time we were gathered, since the 2019 report. You can read more about it in the 2021 report. And we definitely want to thank all the partners who are here working to create community solutions, and to all the GHA stakeholders who are joining together to impact the system of homelessness here in Greenville County. Thank you.
Hi there, good afternoon. My name is Norma Jean Swatis, and I am the Executive Director for Unity Health on Main. And I'm also on the GHA Collaborative Working Group as Vice Chair. So today, it's the common denominator you've heard is the passion that we each have for the work that we do. And the stories that we've shared of some of the individuals and families that we served. So part of the COVID-19 listening sessions and brainstorming is to hear stories from the organizations, hearing stories of the organizations of what happened in these 1.5 to 2 years that we all lost. What happened within your organizations? What happened with the clients, patients that you served? Any of the services that you're providing. Was anything lost? Was anything gained? What innovations came up? What collaborations, what partnerships? So we want to hear those stories, but we also need to be able to identify where we could do some of the listening sessions. So on your, you can see, at the end of each aisle, there's a sheet that looks like this. So if your organization is interested in having a listening session, or if you know of an organization that would be interested in having a listening session, please list that on their name, organization, and email, their contact information. We also want to have individuals and families. We like to hear their stories. We want to see what questions do they have, and what happened during COVID for them and their families. So that we have lived experiences from the individuals and families that we're serving, as well as questions from the organizations that are providing the services. So there's also another green card, little green index card on your chairs. So if you already know of a session that you would like to be, a question that you would like to be part of the COVID questioning, brainstorming sessions we're gonna have, if you could just list the question and write it, you can leave it on your chair and we'll pick those up afterwards. But that's gonna be that's gonna help us bring together the COVID listening sessions and try to put together the questionnaires that we want to be able to provide when we're having the listening sessions. So I know that was a lot of information really quick, but I just wanted to make sure. So organization listed on here for us, please. If you already have a question that you know that you want to know about what happened during COVID, what happened within an organization, Or even if you have, even if you want to put something down as far as a lesson learned, please document that down on the green postcard and we'll pick those up after the fact. And then also at our July meeting, we'll be reporting out on what we've learned from these brainstorming sessions. And one last thing, so we have, you'll see this QR code. So we're sending out this survey to all of our partners to fill out. So this is like a little QR code that'll take you straight to the survey for you to complete for your organization. You just want to find out what services you provide, what are some of the eligibility requirements, what's needed for families or individuals to be able to receive the services from each of your organizations. So if you complete the survey for us, that'll help us compile our resource guide. So that way it'll be useful and beneficial for everyone that's going to be able to use that. Okay. Anything else? Okay, that's it. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Bruce Forbes with SHARE, and since 1999, I've been helping Greenville's homeless in a variety of different ways. And it's so good to see this entire collaboration that's here today. I've always said that homeless service providers on their own are not going to be able to end homelessness in our community. It really is going to take a community effort, meaning all the things that you're seeing here. One of the roles I play is also Vice President of the Continuum of Care's Advisory Council. And the COC, the Continuum of Care, represents 13 counties in the upstate. And we bring in about a little over $3 million to the upstate. A lot of that comes into Greenville County for services such as permanent supportive housing that you've heard as a real solution that helps those who have been disabled, have been on the streets for a long period of time, and it gives them a place to really improve their lives. It also provides rapid rehousing so that mom and her children that are sleeping in the car can get into an apartment very easily. And some other services, our database, the HMIS, Homeless Management Information System, things like that. So I want to share a real quick story. Let's say you and I are walking, it's a beautiful day like today, and we're out in the woods and we're just enjoying nature, etc. And we come across a river. And we're just enjoying the sounds of the river, et cetera, et cetera. And all of a sudden we hear the cry of a baby. I'm going, what in the world is a baby doing out here? And we're looking around where this cry is coming from. And then we notice something floating down the river, and we hear the cry coming from there. So one of us jumps in the river, pulls the baby out. Of course, we're going to be doing that, right? Then we wait about 5 minutes and we hear another cry and we notice another baby's coming down the river. What is going on here? We jump in. We're doing this for several hours. We're getting exhausted, pulling all of these babies out of the river. Finally, one of us decides, you know what? One of us decides to stop pulling the babies out of the river and begins to walk upstream. And the other one says, you know, where are you going? We've got all these babies that need assistance, need help. Well, I'm going upstream to find out why these babies are getting in the river in the first place, right? And so we have a whole bunch of wonderful services here in Greenville that will help people after they've already been floating down the stream. And what I'm asking the community is that, what are those things we can do so we prevent babies from getting in the stream in the first place? So when our community talks about the need for more housing that's affordable, it's not just for those people. It's really for the community, because we like to have our low-wage workers do the things that they do in our community, stock the shelves, be on the other end of the drive-through when we're talking to them, all those other wonderful services that they provide. We also want to make sure that maybe there's some solutions out there where we can create quality childcare for second and third shift. You know, we are a 3-shift community. We need to figure out ways to do that so moms and dads have a safe place for their children while they're working and supporting themselves. We want to make sure that employers give people, returning citizens, people who have served their time, an opportunity to be able to make amends and get back to work again so they can support themselves and their family. And then finally, absolutely more affordable, more transportation options that are out there so people can actually get to where the jobs are on a consistent and reliable time. So that's what I think ultimately where the Greenville Homeless Alliance comes into play, is by involving all of these other wonderful folks that are not on the front lines. The front lines folks are real busy and doing the great things that they're doing. But we also need other people who are going upstream to try to make this community a better community. Thank you.
Hey, everybody. I'm standing between you and cake, so just be patient for a couple of minutes. We have learned so much in a very brief time today. So glad all of y'all were here. You know, Bruce, I know that story well. I know it is the over story. And you're right. We are still pulling babies out of the river. We haven't figured out how to get up there, get that ogre out of the way. Sometimes you talk about disposing of them. Sometimes you talk about rehabilitating them. But either way, we need to do something with the systems that keep us all in business. Even that said, this is a day of celebration. It's not the ultimate celebration, the end of homelessness. We have a long journey ahead of us and an uphill climb, as somebody said earlier today. But we can celebrate each step along the way. And today, we've joined together. We're here and we have celebrated 2 steps forward. The release of the latest community report on homelessness, which tells the story of the people behind the numbers. And also the 4-year birthday of the Greenville Homeless Alliance. To me, both as a resident of Greenville and as the director of the Jolly Foundation, these are both worth recognizing for what they are, steps in the right direction. And for me, both of these milestones are very personal and very hopeful. I'm gonna get choked up. Those of y'all who know me know that I get choked up. I played a very small role in producing the original homelessness white paper in 2015. It was the first time a coalition of service providers, first time that I'm aware of, that a coalition of service providers in Greenville collaborated to quantify the issue of homelessness and propose a community strategy to tackle it. The Homeless Alliance was envisioned by that white paper, and it emerged from that early coalition of a few service providers. As you know, it has now grown and it includes all of y'all and many, many more. More than 120 partners, more than 1,500 stakeholders. Homeless service providers certainly, but also other nonprofits, faith groups, business leaders, interested individuals, representatives of law enforcement and city and county governments, community activists, and funders such as the Jolly Foundation. Because of the dedicated work of the Homeless Alliance and its stakeholders, Greenville has seen positive changes in the past 4 years. I'm going to call out just a few, and I know I'll omit many, so please forgive me in advance. I think of the medical respite program that Brandon talked about, that Miracle Hill and New Horizon were able to begin and continue to expand and broaden. I think of the Second Chance pilot with which the school system works so closely to help get families into a better place so their kids can learn. I think of the motel response plan that mobilized the community to respond when the sudden closure of a local motel threatened individuals and families with homelessness.
I think of the Homeless Alliance's tireless advocacy at county council and city council meetings. That's a tough gig, but we're hanging in there because our voices need to be heard and our voices represent those of so many who have no voice. I think of the fact that homelessness is now talked about. It's recognized as a problem we need to solve together. It is no longer invisible. We at the Charlie Foundation invested early and we've continued to support the Homeless Alliance because we see the impact it's having as a convener, as an advocate, as an educator, and as an innovator. The commitment and energy of the Homeless Alliance's working groups are all inspiring to me. Y'all continue to inspire me and all of us with hope and a belief that so much passion and knowledge and optimism is bound to pay off for Greenville, but even more for the people who are experiencing or at risk of experiencing homelessness. For us, the Homeless Alliance is a critical partner as we strive for the Jolly Foundation's vision. Our vision is a just, compassionate, and vibrant community for everyone who lives here. As a resident of Greenville, I believe we need the Homeless Alliance, and I support it personally as well. So as this meeting closes, let's take a few minutes to gather back there with the cake. Oh, yum, it is chocolate. And celebrate what we as a community have been able to do together. So please join me back there. And this meeting is adjourned.
So real quick, in the spirit of putting Tish on the spot, I prepared a couple of remarks, but I also know that we're a couple of minutes over. So I'm just going to hit some highlights real quick. Tish, don't go behind that screen, darling. We all want to see you blush. So you just heard from Tish, an incredible person with an even more impressive way to communicate things. From her beginnings in journalism to her conclusion in going into the story of this very community. Tish has dedicated her life to finding and sharing the bright spots and the blemishes of the communities that she calls home. Unlike other people, however, Tish spotted the problem and then participated in the actions that set up the course to address the problems. Not many of us can say that. Recently, I've been reminded that living a full and wonderful life starts with a simple question, often posed as, what do you want to be when you grow up? But the best way to actually ask that question is, who do you want to be when you grow up? I will take a guess here, but I do not think that Tish thought that she would be all that she was and is. But I do believe and believe deeply that Tish knew she wanted to see what was around her, tell the stories of what she saw, and be a part of the push to change our very world. Right? And that simply can't be put in a box as to what you want to be when you grow up. Rather, it is the journey of your why while defining who you are. Tish exemplifies the idea of reminding us all as individuals, as well as a community, of striving toward who we want to be as Greenville, not what we want to be. Who is who you are in your core? Who is your values? Who is your heart and your soul? In our desire to consistently at GHA have alliterations, here I go. Grit, grace, and grammar. Tish faces challenges with strategy, humility, and the willpower to see it through to a conclusion. Grit. Tish speaks through kindness, even if what she speaks is difficult to hear and listen to. Tish's word is what she will do. And if Tish says that she will be there for you, trust me, I've texted her at 4 o'clock in the morning while in the hospital and she answered. She will be there for you. That is her grace. She doesn't sleep. If you ever, and I mean ever, thought you had your writing truly read, send it to Tish. I guarantee you will learn that you know nothing about grammar. This is one of the many aspects of Tish's legacy, grammar especially for me, not only with GHA, but within every single heart that grew to love hers. Tish's investment in GHA stretches far beyond the funding that the Jolly Foundation has contributed. Tish invested with her heart, something that we all can see is having an incredible return. Beyond dollars and cents and stretching past presence at meetings and edits to articles, Tish pushes you to remember your why. Your why helps you find your what, and your what delivers you to who you are. Greenville is a better place because of Tish, comma, period. So on behalf of the members of the GHA steering committee, the staff of GHA, past and present, the stakeholder community gathered in this room, and those of them who took their cake and dipped, Tish, and especially on behalf of those who have been considered the least and the lost and the unloved. Thank you for your dedication to the work people so easily ignored for so long. We are endlessly and completely grateful for who you are and what you've done for us. We would like to present you with this plaque today to remind you of the bridges that you helped to build and the map that you helped to create for us to continue to follow that map in the years to come. Please join me in thanking Tish for her service to GHA. Hold your plaque up, Tishy. Let's see it. There we go. Nice.